Hello and good evening, and welcome to another session of The Between. This is, I think, our eighth session. It's good to have everyone here again. And yeah, just to go over the usual intro stuff. This is a game of The Between, which is a PBTA game of Victorian, Gothic monster hunters in Victorian London. It's written by Jason Cordova, published by The Gauntlet. You can find more information on that down in the links below. This game has also been arranged through the Gauntlet, which is, as well as sort of publishing stuff we do, is also an online gaming community where we have a calendar of games like this one that you can all sign up to and play with us. So do check that if you're interested. We also have a number of podcasts, as well as a gaming magazine called Codex. And you can find information on all of that stuff at www. I've forgotten the thing, gauntlet-rpg.com, I think. But the correct link will be down below. The number of times I do this, you'd think I'd remember it by now, but here we are. So yeah, as ever, we'll start off with just some quick going over our characters and what happened last time. So I'll go through as usual in character keeper order. So Jose, if you'd like to start us off tonight.
Hey everybody, my name's Jose and I'm calling oh no, I'm not calling from I'm calling from Mexico City right now, but that's immaterial. I am playing Lady Camilla, who uses she, her pronouns. I use he, him pronouns. And Lady Camilla is a wealthy aristocrat in Victorian London. She's one of the monster hunters of Hargrave House. And last time what did she get up to last time? Wow, I'm having suddenly a brain fart. What did we do? Well, she must have done something. Oh, I do remember her going to visit Jenny Johnston, perhaps, in the opium den, along with Aloise Cockburn. She had a bit of a time in the opium den because it was a bit cloying and intense, and there was a scene where someone was perhaps overdosing on opium. But on the bright side, she got some good clues from Jenny Johnson about, I believe, the Cremore Gardens case or threat about the perhaps fake fishy monster that is haunting the pleasure gardens. That's the one thing I recall. Other things may come to me, but glad to be here.
Well, I know that feeling, and yeah, I think last session was a little more. So, well, last session was certainly more low key than the session preceding that, which was very high action. So yeah. So yeah, thank you very much. And Elle, if you'd like to go next.
Sure. I'm Elle. My pronouns are she, her. I'm playing Fujisawa, the factotum, also she, her. And last time, Fujisawa spent most of the session investigating our new threat, the Waitley camera, alongside her employer, the vessel Priyanka Balakwa. Fujisawa had an interesting conversation sort of about cultural appropriation with the kind of servant boy at the Society Obscura, which is the organization that now holds the Waitley camera. And at night, she was fortunate enough to be able to save her employer from a fate possibly worse than death, of being sucked into the fragrant void. I think that's it.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thank you very much. Daryl, if you'd like to go next.
Hello, hello. My name is Harold. My pronouns are they, them, and I am playing the aforementioned vessel, Miss Priyanka Balakwa, whose pronouns are she, her, or they, them. Priyanka is much more the they, them on the inside, but it's London, so she, her, and Miss is fine. Last time, in addition to almost getting sucked into the aforementioned fragrant void, we did some fairly in-depth investigation of the Waitley camera by infiltrating the, I believe it was called the Society Obscura. And we've had some interesting conversations with the proprietor of the society. We kind of poked our nose into some of the more debauched aspects of the society's nighttime events. Priyanka has been coming a little undone lately as far as things go. That's probably all the like high society pressure of monster hunting and murder and mayhem. But yeah, she's looking to basically continue investigating and make some connections with various people. Maybe dark forces, maybe just regular people. We'll see.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And last but not least, Brian.
Brian, he, him, and I am playing Professor Alois Cockburn, also he, him. Last time he started with a conversation with Simon Pedmont and Bella Thrum, who were attacked by this supposed creature of Cremon Gardens. And then he met up with the man in the sun mask, is that?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, and inhaled something that gave him some images of what is it? It smelled of sweet spice or yes, warm spices, and he had a vision of an albino peacock in a crystal cage.
Excellent, thank you very much. So yeah, and a quick recap from my side of things. Last time we didn't solve a mystery last time, though I think we did answer the first question of the creature of Cremon Gardens last time. I don't think that was the week before. So yes, you have decided that the creature of Cremon Gardens is a hoax, and now you've just got to find out who perpetrates the hoax and why. And you've got a couple of available clues left still that might point towards the potential culprits or motivations therefore, sort of thing. So you need you've just got the question on that, which to resolve the threat, which is who perpetrates hoax and why, with a complexity of 4. You have 2 clues currently available. There is the Gin Lane murders, where you believe a spirit of abandon has been possessing people and causing them to commit brutal murders. There is an initial question there, which is, are the attacks truly random, or is there a pattern in the madness, with a complexity of 2? And then depending on which way you answer, unlocks a follow-up question of either if the attacks are random, then a cult has mistakenly freed a powerful spirit and you need to know how to recapture that with a complexity of 4. Or if there is a pattern, then the spirit is acting under the direction of the cult, and you need to find out who is behind the cult and what they are planning with a complexity of 6. And finally, the Waitley camera, which is just one question for this, which is what circumstances will cause someone photographed by the camera to disappear? And you know here that this is you're essentially looking for a missing actress who has been allegedly teleported to another world by this camera. But yeah, answering that question, which is a complexity 8, will let you resolve the threat by reversing the process and bringing the actress back, or by using the camera to transport yourself to the fragrant void and making contact with the entity there. You can do both if you wish, or combine the 2 into one thing. And you have 4 clues already towards that. So yeah, that's kind of where things stand at the moment. So with that, we will begin, or I should say probably like continue our dawn phase. I know last time we answered our questions. As ever, if you wish to switch your questions around now, feel free to do so. Do we have any moves that kick off at dawn? I think you did your Memory is the Servant move at the end of last session, I think, Fujisawa?
I don't think I did, actually.
Oh, no, then cool if you want to do that now. I might have been thinking of the time before.
Sure. So I think that Fujisawa found in the American West room at the Society a length of golden rope, perfect for use as a lasso or for shibari or something similar, who knows. I'll go ahead and give that to Lady Camilla.
Excellent.
Super thoughtful gift. Thank you.
And yeah, I think that's the only other one that we have that kicks off at dawn. And the only other thing is, do we have any Janus masks to be resolved? I don't think we had one from one of the threats, but again, I have forgotten that before. So I don't think we did. But yeah, if anyone has any personal ones that they wish to resolve now, then please do mention it. But otherwise, we will begin the day phase. So I'm just quickly reminding myself, and I think all of those sound familiar. Yeah, awesome. Cool. So, brilliant. Yeah, so into the day phase. So yeah, all that really remains now, before we get into things proper, is just to see what people want to get up to today. I'll go in reverse order again this time, I think. Alois, is there what would you like to get up to during the day phase today?
Let's stalk Bert Broadswell.
Excellent. Yep. Bert is the partner of the missing actress from the Waitley camera, and is the person who brought the case to your attention, I suppose. But yeah, excellent. Yeah, you can certainly find him and keep an eye on him and see what he's up to. That sounds good. Miss Balakwa, how about yourself?
I will be going to mass because I have a lot of feelings right now, and I've got to pray on it. That is an open invitation, of course, for anyone who's also feeling particularly devout and or guilty or just curious about Priyanka. So, yep, feel free to see that as a vulnerable move, open invitation.
Sure thing. Fujisawa, how about you?
I was also interested in potentially doing a vulnerable move with someone. It doesn't have to be Priyanka, especially since I know we spent a lot of time together last session. But if anyone else would like to, I am totally open to that.
Cool. Yeah, we can come back around in a second and see what else people might want to do. But that's cool. Lady Camilla, how about you?
I think there are two things on my mind. One is possibly going to see Lady Cressida, who is the member of the Royal Explorers Club, who's an expert on ancient cultures. and to talk to her. And then, but I'd be happy to also, if there's time, be involved in one of the vulnerable moves, because I also have this lingering condition. Actually, it's kind of new, actually, so it's not that lingering. So I'm open to going to mass. I haven't been to mass in a long time. So if Priyanka's open to a visitor.
I mean, does Lady Cressida have an estate with its own private chapel? Because we feel that it'd be really good to get away from the city for a moment, you know?
Sure. Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah. It's possibly the chapel at the, because I believe she works at the at a university, if I'm remembering her correctly. Yes, so it might be
Lady
like
Cressida does. Oh yeah,
yes,
we could do it at the university chapel. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds good. That sounds good. And yeah, I guess
or I'm open to switching to going on a betting spree with Fujisawa, if depending on how people want to go. So I'm flexible.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, also Fujisawa, obviously you can only request a vulnerable scene with your mistress. But if but there's also nothing to stop you from kind of following on from the scene in the chapel with Lady Camilla, perhaps, or Alois, if you're also interested in having a vulnerable scene with anyone, that's also a possibility. We can fit a couple of bits, and like I said, we are aiming to run a slightly shorter day phase today, but at the same time, we're under no particular restrictions, so feel free to do whatever you fancy.
It seems like we're kind of interested with everyone doing a vulnerable scene. So what's the two pairings that we all think is, or maybe just that we haven't seen, or?
Yeah.
I personally would love to have a scene with Fujisawa and Alice, because it's been a while. And I also really want to see the scene between Camilla and Priyanka. But that's just like my personal selfish requests.
Yeah.
I think we're all okay with that.
Yeah, that sounds good. That sounds good. We can hash out the details for the scene between Fujisawa and Alois when we come to that. Anyway, so yeah, I think we'll kick off then with mass in the chapel. It's probably a fairly sparsely attended affair. There's probably kind of a contingent of staff who kind of have to be here. But aside from that, I don't imagine it's the most vibrant of church gatherings. But yeah, if you like to start of that scene, Lady Camilla, Priyanka, and as we see you kind of arriving and how that goes.
I think as we enter and the preacher is launching into a sermon about Sodom and Gomorrah, Priyanka very quickly slips into one of the pews and bows their head. We're wearing black today. We're not wearing our usual white. We're wearing a black veil, so it looks almost as if we're in mourning. But we go and sit there and pull out our little black Bible and start to read along from the book of Genesis.
Yeah, and a smirk crosses Lady Camilla's face as she hears the topic of the sermon as they arrive. And but she goes, but she slips in next to Priyanka, and she is just looking around. It's been a while since Lady Camilla has been at a religious service, and so she's just taking it all in. And what is she wearing? She's wearing something conservative. She knew that they were going to a religious service, and Lady Camilla likes to dress for the part. So I imagine something in like a dark gray, a day dress of some sort, with a high collar, very unassuming. She's not taking up a lot of space today, or at this moment anyways, as best she can.
And I think as the preacher is droning on and on about the sins of the men of Sodom, that Priyanka leans over and says, I hate how people interpret this particular story. They love to focus on the idea that it was all about the unholy desires, but truly it's a story about not expressing love for people from different parts of the world, different parts of the planes of existence. If they had just met them openly, then there wouldn't have been a problem and Sodom wouldn't have fallen.
True, that does seem like a more accurate interpretation. The interpretation of hospitality, refused. But these preachers seem to have some other agenda in belaboring the point of the strange desires, let's call them. I wonder sometimes. Go.
Personally, I think that one's desires are not to be wondered at. One's desires are meant to be embraced as a part of one's existence. After all, God gave us all feelings.
My dear, I am in complete agreement with you. And
such a rare occasion, Lady Camilla.
Not so rare, I hope. I imagine that we are simpatico in many ways. After all, we are both members of our grave house. We work for the Queen in these endeavors. And as far as our conversation goes today, I feel like we are on the same page.
And that Priyanka flips a page of their Bible and starts to quietly pray. And at this point, I think that this is, okay, when you have an intimate moment with another hunter, actually, so I flip the page, but I lean over and I show it to you so that you can read along. And it's actually not even a King James translation. It's an even more archaic version of the Bible. It's very old and written in a very broken kind of translation. And you see that it's actually like that. Not all of the stories are quite as you might expect them to be.
And I see it, Lady Camilla, as Priyanka turns the page and offers the Bible for Lady Camilla to read along. Lady Camilla reaches out her hand and just places it gently on the page, maybe brushing Priyanka's just slightly in the process.
This is a very intimate Bible study. So that is definitely, I think, triggering the vulnerable move. And I would like to clear one of my conditions. And I think that this is a very, tender moment. We've had a tender conversation about, kind of embracing, the truer feelings of ourselves. So I feel like I get to clear bloodthirsty here. But I would like to, since this is my vulnerable scene, I also get the option of, stumbling upon a clue or inviting the other hunter to ask about my past. And, wouldn't it just be such a shame if Lady Camilla pushed too hard and asked something intimate about my past and ruined this tender moment?
Let's see. Give me a moment. What does Lady Camilla want to know? I do wonder, my dear, as we read together from the Bible, you still wear a blindfold. It seems an unnecessary affectation. What brings you to do it?
There are many things in this world that were not meant for human eyes. There are things of beauty, things of sacredness that we tarnish just by perceiving. I have learned many things in my days, though I am still rather young and hopefully have many more things to learn. But I know that it is very important to give deference to things that would not stand to be tainted by my acknowledgement.
I stand corrected, my dear. Here I thought it was an affectation, but to you it is a symbol of humility. It's good to know you better, Priyanka. I think we can cut there.
Yeah, sounds good.
Excellent, thank you. Yeah, so Professor Fujisawa, I guess first, whose vice do you think we're going to see indulged in here, and where do we think the scene is going to be set?
Do you want to do something with your vice?
I was thinking we could have all traveled together to this university, and then we went to the library while they went to the chapel.
Sure, yeah, that works for me.
Plus, it gives us the nice transition from cutting from the Bible to some other book that Eloise is flipping through.
I love that. That's great. Do you want to set the scene?
Yeah, I mean, I think Eloise has a pile of books on whatever, table he's reserved for himself, and he's flipping between them. And, do you read much, Fujisawa?
I think perhaps Fujisawa is in the midst of sort of, I imagine like maybe Eloise has given her a list of books to fetch. So she's kind of been, in and out, traveling through the stacks and coming back with what you've requested. And she's just setting another few heavy tomes on the table. Seems surprised that Eloise is striking up a conversation. I don't have as much time to myself these days as I would like, but I suppose I never was much of a reader. That's really more of my sister's territory.
She was a reader. What did she prefer to read?
Poetry, mostly. Fujisawa looks, she's always sort of uptight in the midst of her work, but she looks like notably uncomfortable to be discussing her sister, even though this is like such a like mundane, like anodyne conversation. She studied many of the classics. What is it? Oh, go on.
I find often you can learn more about people by their poetry than any other writings. When I was younger, made a few attempts at writing poetry, but I had no talent for it.
Fujisawa sort of stifles a little smile. I would love to hear one.
Oh, they're all long gone now. I don't think I committed any to memory. They wouldn't have been worth it.
Oh, I can only imagine that you were better than you are giving yourself credit for.
Well, I'm then and now more of a reader than a writer.
Remind me, out of character, do we know what you're a professor of?
In game, no. In my head, I think it's probably something like linguistics, or I mean, in my head, I know at this point, like he speaks, like he knows a bunch of languages. That's the main thing I'm like kind of aware of.
Cool. Does he speak Japanese?
Do you want him to speak Japanese?
No, I'm just curious.
I think he knows a bit. I don't think he's fluent in Japanese.
Cool. I was curious to know. I think now Fujisawa will kind of look down onto the pages of the books that Eloise is poring over, and she'll ask, what precisely are we looking for? Yes.
Well, I always have a number of lines of interest at any one time, although I suppose I'm at the moment a bit preoccupied with the image of a peacock and what it might mean. But I think he's like simultaneously looking at books having to do with all of the open threats, and any particularly rare books that this library might have. He also would just be interested in getting a look at them. I mean, he's definitely has multiple projects going on in his head at any one time.
Yeah, I think that's like why Fujisawa asked, right? Like she's looking at
if she's trying to find the common thread between them all, yeah, she's not going to find it.
I think she'll sit down, kind of close to Eloise at the mention of the peacock, because that like piques her interest. And she'll say, peacock. What significance does that have?
When I met with the man in the sun mask to investigate the missing Penelope. That's the image that I was given. An albino peacock in a crystal cage.
Oh, the man in the sun mask. I don't like him.
He's unnerving, I suppose, but compared to some of the other things we've seen, tolerable. Helpful.
I think Fujisawa is flashing back to seeing Silas Gran strung up in his butcher shop. Yes, I suppose unnerving but helpful is the modus operandi for Hargrave House.
It's difficult but important work that we do, I think.
Yes, although I do wonder sometimes if it's worth it.
It's a sacrifice to undertake.
I think Fujisawa has gone a little pale as her mind has begun to wander towards all of the terrible things she's seen in the course of her work for Hargrave House. And I think we see that the pages of the book, or books, several that are open in front of Eloise, some of them begin to sort of turn by themselves, like flip themselves. And Fujisawa will kind of gently place a hand over one of them, slowly, as though she's doing it casually, though I think it comes off as completely deliberate. This is your advice, so I think whenever you want, you can decide to either stumble on a clue or invite me to ask about your past.
And I mean, it's a situation that would make sense to find a clue, but if you have a question, that's always more interesting.
I would need a second to think about a question, although I'm sure I have one somewhere in my brain. So it's up to you. We do need clues, so.
I mean, I'm probably going to hide this one anyway, so.
So sorry, are we going question or clue?
I mean, if you have a question, I'd always think the question's more interesting.
Sure. So I think Fujisawa turns to look Eloise in the eye, which she doesn't do very often. And you see that she has this sort of haunted look. And she says, was there anything from where you come from your upbringing, from your childhood. That would have prepared you for things that you've seen here. Were there such terrors in your life before Hargrave House? And I suppose the way she's asking is like trying to get at the type of, like, what type of person with what type of experience it would have been drawn to this work in the first place, you know?
I suppose I spent some time with terrors in strange worlds, but all, and he like pats the books in front of him, all in books that I found. I spent more time in the company of books than other people as a child, I think. I think there are times when now that I'm facing them in the real world, that the sense that maybe it's not quite real, that it's all just a story being imagined helps you get through till the danger is done.
I can see how that would be comforting. But I'm afraid it's all very real, Mr. Cockburn. And I think with that, Fujisawa will stand and continue down the list of books, going off to fetch another stack.
Awesome. So I think with that, I think Lady Camilla, if you wanted to meet with Lady Cressida,
one thing. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, no, go. Sorry, yeah, go for it. Go for it.
One thing I wanted to say about our the vulnerable scene with Priyanka earlier on, that I was thinking that maybe in dipping her hand into the holy water, Lady Camilla was somehow relieved of the cloying scent. It cleansed her soul to the point of the cloying scent was removed. So that I think I can remove a condition too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, no, that's cool.
Yeah. So what I imagined is that when we get to Lady Cressida's office, there's a note on the door that says, "Gone to the museum." And I turn to Priyanka and roll my eyes a bit and say, "It seems my friend is giving me a merry chase today. Would you be interested in accompanying me to the British Museum?"
Certainly, Lady Camilla. I don't believe that I have had the pleasure of visiting the museum yet. I am so recently in London, so I would be glad to accompany you.
It is a monument to the British Empire and the extent of the Queen's influence. And so I imagine then we have a cutscene to us going up the steps of the British Museum.
I want to interject just before that.
Oh, go for it. Or do you want more? Oh, sorry.
You said that. No, you said that line about like it's a monument to the British Empire and like a testament to the Queen's vow. And you say that probably as you're turning away, and then Priyanka, you just see their shoulders like raise up a little bit and quick tap 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 of their hands, tap, and then
tap. Perfect.
And then up the stairs, yes.
And then up the stairs into the The treasure vault of looted culture. And then I imagine we come across Lady Cressida in front of this relief of Dionysus and the Bacchae, within the room with all the Elgin marbles and all of that. And so we approach her, and she's staring up at the frieze, taking notes. And Lady Camilla just kind of comes in quietly behind Lady Cressida unheard, and says, "Look at the abandon that he inspires in his followers. Were we ever that free, my dear?"
And I think Lady Cressida starts a little and turns and says, "Oh, I didn't hear you come up quite unexpected, Lady Camilla." And she will smile and say, "Have you? I didn't think you'd been away for a little while. I take it you aren't here to drop any more antiquities off."
No, not this time, my dear. I would like to present to you Miss Priyanka Balakwa, an associate of mine from Hargrave House. Miss Priyanka, this is Lady Cressida. Oh, wait a second, make the name right. Lady Cressida Bachelor House, Professor of Antiquities.
Priyanka gives like a slight bow and says, "Lady Cressida, it is a pleasure to make your acquaintance."
And you, Miss Balakwa, lovely to see you. I'm sure. Well, I take it the two of you aren't here to for a tour, I would assume. Though if you are, I'm sure. She'll kind of glance around. I'm sure I can find someone here who would be able to do so for you.
No need for such formalities, Cressida. We are here to inquire about something relevant to Hargrave House. We have a series of murders that seem to remind me of this frieze that we are looking at here. I remember in the Euripides play that Pentheus was torn to shreds by the strength of the Maenads. We are having something similar happen to individuals who are here in the city, showing unheard of strength and somehow associated with imbibing alcohol, like the cultists of Dionysus, as I recall. And like you and I in our youth, Cressida. Remember the wild parties? Who was that young man with the dimples who threw the parties in Mayfair? Do you remember that?
Oh, indeed. I don't think we quite tore anyone apart, though not for want of trying.
My memory is shoddy, so who knows? We may have. I do remember they were wonderful parties. Now it seems our duties, the world has caught up with that, and our duties and responsibilities have eclipsed such carefree frivolities in us, our age. So I guess it would be two clues, if Lady Cressida has any two clues that might be of help with, I think this is the Jen Lane murders, right?
Yeah, that's correct, yeah. Shall I say, it is actually funny. You should ask that, actually. We have had a couple of items from the Greek collection go missing recently, taken from this very museum. Can you imagine who would commit such a crime? Terrible.
That is shocking.
But yes, she will kind of go to a kind of pocketbook and flick them, find out a looks like just a kind of typed piece of paper that was that she had folded in there, and said, yes, the items in question were let's see, a small porcelain figure of a deity. I believe it was of sorry, that's the name. Yeah, I believe it was an image of Silenus. Just you know, she'll kind of do vague hand signs. Not a large thing, not especially valuable either, but obviously of great historical significance regardless. The other was much more unique an item. A large silver a wine crater, a chalice, she will say, turning to Miss Blackwell, a drinking cup made of silver and carved with, very graphically homoerotic imagery on it.
Don't you worry, my dear. You cannot shock Miss Blackwell.
There are obviously she'll kind of hand over the piece of paper she's been looking at, and there are kind of sketches taken from the archives of the items in question on there. Yes, they were reported missing a few days ago. We've obviously been looking internally, but we've yet to find a culprit for their disappearance. But obviously, if you do have some cult or some other group dedicated to Dionysus, if that's what you believe, then perhaps it has something to do with them.
Always helpful, Cressida. Thank you so much. It is shocking news that you give us that these items have gone missing with all the security here at the museum. These are parts of our patrimony, and we will endeavor to recover them. I don't know if Priyanka wants to make some comment as Camilla and her are strolling through the galleries of the British Museum, looking at the pillaged,
I mean, if you want to have a very brief conversation, Priyanka will just be like, I assume that, we've walked away from Lady Cressida and we're heading back out of the museum. And Priyanka just very lightly, almost as if it's like a passing thought, says, do you ever consider whether the people who created these things miss the value that they must bring to their own museums?
I'm not sure the Greeks have any museums, do they? These were...
I'm sure everyone has museums.
I just think these things can be cared for here among us as curators of this cultural wealth. The empire is perfectly poised. to preserve and educate people, the people of the country, of this great country, through these artifacts. They would serve no purpose back in their homelands.
Yes, and of course the Empire is has a long history of being an expert steward of such things.
If I didn't know you better, Miss Priyanka, I'd say I hear a hint of sarcasm in your voice.
Oh, I wasn't aware I was hinting.
Lady Camilla smirks. And we can cut the scene there.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Yes, so we'll just quickly do Professor Cockburn. You said you were going to go and try and snoop on Bert Broadswell. Fujisawa, was there anything else you wanted to do? Oh yeah, we'll take a quick break. So I just wanted to sort of grab a quick thing of where we were going to go first, and then we'll take a break. Yeah, Fujisawa. Sorry, yeah. Was there anything else you wanted to do before we sort of move into the evening?
I think if Eloise is going to go follow Bert, perhaps Fujisawa would try to catch up with one of her informals and do a little solo investigation as well.
Yeah, sounds great. Cool. So yeah, we'll take a quick break. We'll come back. So if we come back at 10 past, and then we'll pick things up from there, do this last couple of scenes, and then move into the evening. I'll see you in a few minutes. So yeah, I think we'll go with I think actually I'm going to say Fujisawa. I think I'll ask you first, and then we'll see where that goes from there. Where do you who do you think you're going to go and try and meet up with, and what are you looking for from them?
So I changed my mind. I think I want to go see Madame Sorokin, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Is she still set up in her parlor? Remind me.
I actually can't remember if you'd kind of officially invited her to stay at Hargrave House, or if she was still essentially living off on her own, but just kind of doing some work with you.
Well, I think part of Lady Camilla's spiel is that we're going to get her out of that old parlor and get her into some better digs. The implication might be that she came to Hargrave House, or maybe she's nearby, but Lady Camilla would keep her near. So you're welcome to describe her new place, Fujisawa, if you want. Or you can have her in Hargrave House.
Sure. I think maybe she's in a new sort of ritzier kind of storefront near Belgrave Square, like a short walk, from Hargrave House. So I think we see Fujisawa when she leaves Eloise. She'll spend some time going about her regular errands. We see her, buying food for the night's dinner. She picks up some fresh flowers, white lilies and orchids for Hargrave House. And I think she's passing by Madame Sorokin's new digs without having planned beforehand to go in. But she'll look down at the flowers in her hands and think back to her last interaction with Madame Sorokin, which wasn't so polite as it could have been. And she will approach the door, which has like a brand new like silver sort of sign up, Madam Serafina Sorokin, with maybe a little like open eye logo right underneath. And Fujisawa will knock on the door.
And yeah, there will be a just a call of come in, please.
She'll come in. Is it the assistant?
No, that's actually it's actually Sarah herself.
Okay. Yeah, Fujisawa comes in, leaves her shoes by the doorway. And she's got like, several bouquets of flowers that she has to kind of carry with both hands. And she'll say, like, peeking over the blooms that are almost like obscuring her face. I was just passing by and I thought I would come apologize.
I'm sure you don't have anything to apologize for, Miss Fujisawa, but it's nice to see you anyway. Come in, please sit down. Can I take some of those off of you? She kind of peers around the flowers at you.
Oh, actually, these are for you. And she'll hand out a bouquet of white orchids, which mean in kind of floriography, regrets or apologies. I think I do have to apologize, actually, because I denigrated your skills. I know how that can feel. Although I will add that I was right in a sense.
I'm quite used to it. Miss Fujisawa, it's quite right. Very few people truly believe in the the things I can do. I probably wouldn't have believed it myself if I hadn't seen it.
I know that feeling very well. And I imagine that there's like a kind of a mirror on the wall. And we can see in this moment that Fujisawa's reflection is turning toward Madame Sorokin or Sarah Tanner, though Fujisawa's head is not moving. And Fujisawa will say, in any case, I did come to apologize, but I also could use your help, I think, with a new case that Hargrave House is investigating. The murders on Jin Lane.
Yes, I had something about that. Some a string of deaths. I wasn't quite sure what to make of it, but yeah, of course, if there's anything I can do to help.
Well, I'm told that a rogue spirit of some kind is possibly involved, and I thought, what better show of my faith in your abilities than to ask you to use them to help our cause.
I could try and reach out, of course, Miss Fujisawa. I'm not sure I'm quite as good at this as Miss Balakwa, but I can certainly try. And she'll kind of give a kind of, you know, half smile.
Very few are as good as Miss Balakwa.
Sit down at the table, and we'll see what we can manage. And yeah, she'll kind of sit you down, and I think what you'll see is she'll, this time, rather than going for the cards, or obviously she no longer has the mirror, she instead gets just a fairly simple sort of pewter dish, and fills it with a jug of water that she has sitting on the side, and she'll, without any kind of the showmanship of before, she will reach out and just put her hands on either side of the basin, and close her eyes in a sort of almost like meditative, trance-like state. And I think I'll ask for the information move here with sensitivity, please.
Okay. That is a 10. And actually, I will mark a mask to bump that up to a 12.
Nice, nice. So with that, we will be getting 2 clues, I believe, because you are consulting with her about spiritualism. And we'll also get a mastermind clue. I'll come back to those in a second. In the meantime, Alois, you will be you have an address for Bert Broadswell, where he lives. He is, you know, obviously he gave you contact details when he reported Penelope's disappearance. He is an actor, you know that much of him, like Penelope. So yeah, it's probably kind of after you've been to the university, that's probably about mid-morning or so when you kind of get onto him. But he's also probably not, you know, not necessarily, probably isn't an early riser due to his profession. So you will be able to kind of catch up. Well, I say catch up with him. I think you said that you were planning to what's the word I'm looking for?
I think I said I was going to stalk him.
That's it. Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. Cool.
I mean, I could also say I would like to watch him from afar.
Yeah, sure thing. So I think you'll kind of see him leaving his house. He's dressed not like extravagantly, but probably fashionably is a fair way to put it. He's not a hugely wealthy man, but obviously clothing is one of the things he does spend that money on. He's kind of going to head out of his where his flat is. You'll see him kind of head to a local kind of dining hall type place and get a spot of breakfast and probably a mug of dark beer with it. But yeah, I think I'm going to ask for again for an investigation move here, probably with composure. I think for kind of trying to keep yourself hidden.
That's a 7.
A 7, cool. So yeah, I think you see him stop. And you see him leave from there. He kind of he does a few bits of like very incidental. He probably kind of checks in at the theatre he's working at to see if there's any messages for him, that kind of thing. The first thing he does that kind of it may or may not be out of character of him, but it's certainly that certainly seems more unusual, is you see him head into a rare bookshop, possibly one that you yourself are familiar with. I imagine you're familiar with most of them in London. It's and as he ducks inside, this is kind of where I'm going to give you the complication. You will be able to get a clue out of this regardless, but essentially, because it's just a small cramped bookshop, your choices basically are either to follow him in which case there's obviously a chance he might maybe not recognize you, but that you'll have to kind of get closer to him to see what he's up to in there. Or the only other way you'll be able to find out what he's doing inside is basically to wait for him to leave and then go in and speak with the person in the shop, by which point obviously he'll have gone on his way. So that's kind of your choice there. So what do you think you'll do?
I think I will follow him in.
Yeah, excellent. So yeah, as you enter, and as I said, it's not a big shop. There's there are a few stacks of a few shelves of books, of some of the more like first editions of kind of fairly fairly standard books, and stuff like that. You obviously know that the majority of the trade here is done with individual collectors. So the stuff they have out on these shelves at the front is really just for passing trade rather than their main work kind of thing. But yeah, as you head in, Bert Broadswell, and I mean obviously you've seen him before this point, but he's he's kind of lantern jawed. He's got a dark long eyelashes, quite a trim but well kept physique. You can definitely tell he does seem he's got that he's got that that sense. You can tell that he's on edge. He definitely seems to have some genuine feeling towards Penelope and her disappearance. This is something that you would have noted, or the hunters in general would have noted when he came to Hargrave House. He was clearly upset by her disappearance, and there's still that kind of edge to him as he's talking with the man behind the counter. And he says, "No, damn it, man, it's not this one either. If it was, I know it was a copy of Dante's Inferno, but it's not any of these ones. And obviously, if I still had the one that she had, then I wouldn't need to come here and find one for you." And he'll kind of he'll begin kind of quoting a couple of passages from it. He's saying, I know this here, and he'll say in the copy she had, it said this instead, and he'll speak, and it is clearly, it's actually in relatively well pronounced, and to your as we learned that about you earlier, you will recognize it as the kind of medieval Italian that you would expect for the Inferno, but yeah, it's clearly it is a bit different to the I'm not sure of the precise what those precise differences would be, but there are definitely some in the kind of the quartos he's quoting. It's definitely a slightly different version of the same poems. Some of the words are slightly different, and the sort of man's going to say, well, I did hear that he'll give the name of another booksellers, did have another old translation that had been found recently. Maybe they had it, but so these are the only versions of it we've had recently, and with that, Bert is going to kind of say no, it's fine. I'm sorry. I've just been my friend had this copy and she's gone missing, and I just wanted to know if that had anything to do with it. That's all. Thank you. He'll kind of stand and well, not stand, he's already standing, but he'll kind of, where he's been kind of leaning over the desk, he'll kind of straighten himself up and turn around towards the door, and then he probably does kind of see you at that point and give like a nod, and maybe again that kind of look of half recognition. I'm not 100% sure whether you would have met him or not when he came to Hargrave House, but
I may have, but then Eloise tends to kind of lurk in the background anyway, so he may not totally remember where he's seen me. So what's the clue?
So yes, the clue is a copy of Dante's Inferno, but the story is different than you remember. Obviously, again, in this case, you don't actually have that copy to hand, but you might, from what he's said and the clues you've heard, you might be able to track down a copy of it if you think having that copy is necessary for the ritual.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. That Eloise would probably be pretty decent at tracking down a copy that matches. Should be better than him at tracking down the copy.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Plus, yeah, if I'm actually tracking, well, one, any chance to actually get a hold of another unusual book Eloise is going to take. Plus, it that makes more sense to be something that Eloise tucks away for himself instead of sharing with everyone else.
Yeah,
actually, certainly. If maybe he gets a copy from another member of the Esoteric Conclave has a copy and lends it to him, but says, but don't show this to anybody else. And he's like, oh yeah, okay.
I like that. I really like that. That's a good way of getting that clue, but yeah, also keeping it on the download. That makes a lot of sense. That's awesome. Yeah. In fact, I think it may even be the bookseller he mentions, who I'll say is called Peveril. Mr. Peveril. He is a member of the society.
Okay. So there's a scene of Eloise kind of rushing to let him know not to share that copy. With,
Yes, and he will. Like I said, he will lend you a copy. And when you get a chance to actually have a look at it, it's like, again, it's mostly the same in its broad scope, but as I said, the story is just a little bit different. There are some slight changes to it. Some of the imagery is a little different. My knowledge of Dante is not good enough to come up with an actual explanation of what that is, but it's there. Awesome. And I think with that, we will move to the dusk phase. I can find my... So, the dusk phase. So our usual first point of call, which is to resolve any playbook moves or custom moves that are resolved during dusk phase. Once more, do you want to pick up any weaponry from the Rear Admiral, Lady Camilla?
Sure, let's get weapons for everybody. Cool. Who knows? We might need them.
Yeah.
So, I'm going to say that when folks gather at Hargrave House to prepare for the night phase in dusk, Lady Camilla will introduce them to Rear Admiral. Oops, what is his name? Rear Admiral Alfred. Rear Admiral Alfred Bingley Green, who is jolly and quiet, and with eyes that have seen things. And she says, "My friends, may I introduce you to the dear Admiral? He is a past member of Hargrave House, and he has been so kind to open up his armory for us. He has all sorts of things here that you may choose from. Everybody can take one thing." And so, out of character, there is a list that I guess I could put in the chat. Let's see.
You can basically pick something from the list, or if you want to just come up with something else,
or you can make something up.
You can go ahead and do that. These you may want to make a little note on when you mark these ones down on your thing, because they when you mark these from your personal quarters, they are erased from it completely. They are essentially just purely one use. But there's otherwise no restrictions on how long you can keep them around or when you can use them or what have you. we had a very fun use in the game I'm running the other week, where our legacy had an exploding pocket watch that they threw at someone in a hall of mirrors, which didn't end well for anyone. But
These are all so good.
yeah.
You can only pick one, my dear.
Are we gonna like identify which ones we're taking?
Yep.
Yeah, may as well just for the fun of it, if nothing else.
Yeah, okay, because obviously Priyanka has to pick up the razor rosary.
I figured that was de rigueur. I think Lady Camilla will have to pick up the vicious dogs.
I would like to have a sword hidden in a parasol.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
I think I do have a pocket watch as part of my. Yep, pocket watch. Okay, that's part of my look, so I got to take the exploding pocket watch.
Nice. I'm a particular fan as well of the poison spectacles. That's that sounds more dangerous than to the wearer than anything else. But
someone goes to read a menu. Oh, would you like to use these spectacles?
I mean, honestly, if I were playing a slightly different build of character, I would have been all over runic gauntlets.
Awesome. Cool. So does anyone else have a move that triggers at dusk? Don't think so. Cool. Awesome. So next is a paint the scene question. I think because I like the idea of having received the Rear Admiral here. I think today we'll do the trophy room. There were hunters living in Hargrave House before you. Trophies from their encounters with the supernatural can be found here. Describe one.
I think that there is a taxidermied unicorn head mounted on the wall. And there's still the remnants of blood and gore visible on the tip of its horn.
Nice.
There is a glass, like a glass cloche, like the domed shaped glass encasement that has on a spike a withered hag's hand, complete with jewels decked out on the fingers, and during particularly bright full moons, the fingers twitch and tap on the glass, trying to get out.
Nice. That's cool.
There is a hand mirror cracked in a spiral from the beginning, from the middle of the mirror all the way out to the edge.
Awesome.
I think there is in a display cabinet like a set of tarot cards, but they are all scorched. They went up in Fireball, but they are. You can still make out some of the figures within them, and they all look very angry. All the faces that you can make out look very angry.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So, we will, I'll next check in with what people want to do this evening, though I suppose the more apt question here is, is there anyone who doesn't want to come along to the art exhibition and wants to go off and do something else instead? But yeah, I'll just go through in order anyway. But yeah, Lady Camilla.
Well, I definitely want to go to the art exhibition. I'm not missing that.
Yeah.
But I also had the question that Al put in the chat about the clues from Madame Sorkin. I think they were from and the mastermind clues.
Oh yes, sorry. I'll come back to you with those in a second.
And I also had a question about questions, whether we want to try to answer a question at some point before the night move happens.
Sure. No, that's cool. So I guess I'll check in with the others. Yes, and I will give you those two clues in a second as well, Fujisawa. But yeah, in fact, what I will do is I will give you those clues now before we go any further, so it gives you a bit more context to work with when if you do decide to go for like questions and the like. Have we had that already? I think I might have. No, we haven't. Cool. So, I think that you, as the dish of water before Sarah stirs, images form on its surface. You will see an image that's said it's kind of, it looks like a reflection in water, so it has that slightly kind of there's a bit of a ripple to it. It's slightly indistinct, slightly distorted, but you see an image of a throne with vines and ivy sort of overgrown all over it. And at the base of the throne is a corpse with grapes stuffed in every available orifice and kind of bulging through the flesh as well in places. You don't recognize the corpse as being anyone in particular, but that's kind of the vision that you see.
Well, that's not horrifying at all.
Yeah. And yeah, as Sarah takes her fingers from the bowl, she will give a shudder as well and say, I fear whatever you are looking for, Miss Fujisawa, is dangerous in the extreme. I would be careful. And then she will pause a moment and say, I know you are sensitive to the spirits as well, Miss Fujisawa, even if you do not wield your power in the same way that Miss Balakwa does. Have you been having dreams recently? Dreams as if you're soaring above London like an eagle in flight. I've been having them with increasing regularity recently, and I wonder if you had the same.
A shadow crosses Fujisawa's face. Yes, I've been having those dreams.
I don't quite know what it means, Miss Fujisawa, but, well, they're not bad as such, just strange. I've never quite felt something come into my dreams like that before. And that is your mastermind clue there, is the dreams of flying above London.
Yes, I too found them unsettling, but they're potentially helpful. I hope.
Yes. Yes, I hope so. Well, if ever there's anything else I can help with, don't hesitate to ask. I'll do what I can.
Oh, that will be all. Thank you. Unless by any chance you're able to see which horse will win at Alexandra Park tomorrow. I'm kidding.
I think she will say, I think you should maybe try the pot of gold in that one. Though I will caution you that my talents don't lie particularly in specific predictions like that. And she'll smile.
Oh, that's all right. You've got other qualities. And Fujisawa will leave the orchids with Sarah and be on her way.
Cool. And yes, so we'll switch back into our dusk phase now. Sorry about that. I lost my track there. So yeah, and just to confirm, so yeah, the threats, the clues there were for the Jinlei murders were a throne wreathed in ivy and something else, vines. That was it, and a corpse stuffed with grapes. Cool. So I'll just double check that everything else looks good. Yeah, I don't think we've done any more investigating the creature of Cremont Gardens. We've got those clues from the museum, and and then we have, yes, the Whately camera clue, which you are keeping hold of. So yeah, no, I think we're up to date on all of those. So yeah, I guess I will check in with both with Fujisawa on your plans for the evening, and I will also check in if we think so. Realistically, you could make an effort at answering the Creature of Cremon Gardens, but that would be at a -2 if you brought both clues in. You could also get the first question on the Gin Lane murders is only a 2, so you could, if you think that some of these go towards whether it's random or there's a pattern, you could do so, or could wait and see if you get more clues relevant to that bit of the question, and if these are more related to the second part. And the Whately camera, I believe you. Okay, actually, you in theory you do have just enough clues to make an attempt, but you would be rolling at -4. So I'm going to kind of assume you're probably not going to go for that one right now. So I think you have to have a minimum number of clues equal to half the complexity to even make a go of it, kind of thing.
Should we try for Gin Lane since it's just a 2? Does anyone have a theory? Because I sure don't.
So we just basically have to say whether we think it's random or a pattern, right? Mm-hmm. A pattern hidden in the madness. I'm always one for a pattern hidden in the madness, but just because it's more interesting.
If we want to use the mastermind clue that we just got, I think Fujisawa might volunteer that the places that she visited in these flying dreams, the spots where she would alight, match up with the reports so far of attacks in and around Gin Lane.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's a nice use of that. Cool. So yeah, that's a good start. I mean, you could just roll with that if you wanted to and leave the rest of the clues, but do you think any of the other clues you have at the minute speak to the to there being a pattern or to there being some design behind this?
I think the fact that we have stolen artifacts means that there is some sort of directed action going on. I think that it inclines us to think that there is some sort of pattern hidden in the madness, because to break into the Royal Museum is no laughing matter, and one would need to be either very skilled or very connected to get in there. You don't have to have a very particular reason to be stealing those kinds of artifacts.
I'd agree. That makes sense. Yeah, it's less likely to be accidental if the implements that have been used in this ritual were stolen recently as well.
Do we want to use both of those clues or just one of them? Maybe we could keep the homoerotic one in our pocket to make a good next question run, but use the Solanus one.
Yeah,
part of that. That would give us a flat roll at the moment.
I feel like we should also use the throne wreathed in ivy and vines. Because one could make a claim that perhaps there's some sort of plot to summon some Dionysian figure and trench them upon some sort of throne.
Yeah, that sounds good. That would bring you up to a +1 on the roll.
That seems workable.
And again, with these ones, as I always say, it's the nice thing about the ones with binary choices in them is that if you fail it, you can always take the result and the miss anyway and live with the consequences if that's a choice you want to make. So so if someone wants to make that roll.
Eloise, do you want to do it? Oh, Priyanka.
I guess since I was doing quite a bit of theorizing there, I can probably do it. So let's say it's a +1, right?
That's right, yep.
So method to the madness. That is a 12.
And yes, very aptly.
Like that.
That is appropriate because getting the 12+ on that means that there will definitely be some signs of the work of the mastermind in the resolution of this, which I think we'd already kind of inferred, but that is definitely happening now. The one thing I will say, obviously, is that the again, that was the other bit. Actually, I meant to say in our discussion of recording a moment ago when about using the mastermind clues and stuff in the threats is the one thing that you can't or shouldn't is not a good idea to do with the clues is to imply that like the answer to the question is the mastermind, because obviously at that point you can't deal with them, as it were. There has to be kind of an intermediary that's the person you can actually kind of deal with, but yeah, they can absolutely be involved in this. They probably are. Cool. Excellent. Yeah. So sorry, that was digression there. So yes, bringing me back, Fujisawa. I think I've asked you 3 times before getting distracted now, so hopefully some will stick. Yeah. So are you planning on going on to the art exhibition this evening?
Yes.
Yeah. Cool. And Priyanka?
Yes, I will be in attendance.
Cool. And Eloise?
Yeah.
Cool. Perfect. That's good. So that's what's going on this evening. Janus masks. Fujisawa, I know you marked a mask. Do you have a flashback to give, or did you go for a?
I don't. I marked the moss-covered gate, which allows me to unmark the first 2 boxes on my Mask of the Past.
Awesome. That's cool. I really like that one. It's a fun little tweak. The way it gives you a chance to reframe some of the previous answers. It's very cool. Awesome. And with that, we'll introduce the unseen. We'll probably I'll tell you what the unseen is going to be. Then we'll take a break, and then we'll come back and do the first unseen and get into the evening. Cool. So tonight, because it felt appropriate given our day phase, we are going to do the Night at the Museum. It's in column H, line 21, so kind of in the middle of the pack. So yeah, we will be exploring the British Museum by night as the art exhibition continues. But yeah, we'll take a quick break. If we're going to come back at call it 20 past, and we'll pick things up from there. So yeah, the unseen, as I said, is going to be a night at the museum. In the heart of Bloomsbury, the British Museum has recently been expanded and renovated, housing relics of civilizations plundered by British adventurers, explorers, and colonial officers. Kamal Mansour once led excavations in Luxor, but came to work at the museum as a caretaker, and we follow him on his nightly rounds. Elle, the first one of the evening will be for you. Kamal sighs as he sees the sudden grime of industry settling on the Parthenon marbles. What scenes does he see of classical Athens that demonstrate its role as a dominant center of civilization and martial power?
I think he's looking at a portion of marble, formerly of a parapet. It's a frieze of men engaged in the sport of pankration. So sort of mixed martial arts, boxing. We see them kind of hunched over, like grabbing at one another. And these are men that are like built for war and domination. Even though this is stone, we can like practically see the muscles rippling and the teeth gnashing in determination in what is clearly a metonym for ancient Greece's incredible strength. These men are proof of its status as a civilization that would never and could never be diminished.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So the exhibition will be taking place actually on Cheney Walk, in another one of the townhouses there. This one is clearly kind of not inhabited at present by occupants, by residents, I should say, but has been converted into a kind of impromptu art gallery, as it were. There's the front door is open. There are folk entering as you arrive, and you can hear kind of someone playing a piano inside, and the kind of murmur of conversation and that general kind of party vibe coming out onto the street as you enter, while the more garish lights of Cremon Gardens sort of shine down from the other side of the road. I'm just going to kind of introduce people who you will be able to find here quickly now, just so you kind of know who is around. Though if at any point there's someone else you think like might feasibly be here that you want to speak to, feel free to kind of ask and check, and we can line them up as well. The people that you do know will definitely be here this evening are, unsurprisingly, James Whistler will be here. Just trying to put those notes. The pianist is someone you haven't actually met yet, but she is a woman called Sophie Burns. She is actually she's kind of a gigging pianist, usually plays at pubs, and has a regular spot at the Bunch of Grapes where the professor was the other evening. The Abernathys will be in attendance, and they have Periwinkle with them. And again, another figure that you met Professor the other evening, Reverend Nathaniel Bywater, is also going to be in attendance here. As I say, if there's anyone else you think might be here that you want to speak to, that's cool. We can loop those in as well. there's a couple of other people who Lord Fauconberg is almost certainly going to be around somewhere here. There's also a young man called Darius Mazdaki who will be present, as well as a lady who you won't immediately be aware of, but well, as in don't know who it is, but there is a woman dressed completely in black with sort of black veil and stuff like that, who is also kind of present and walking around and quite conspicuous for her manner of dress. So yeah, that is kind of the scene that you are presented with. As you kind of said, as you step inside, it's obvious this is, like I said, it is a townhouse, but like I said, it's sort of devoid of sort of permanent furniture at the minute, and just sort of paintings and pictures and sculptures of all varieties kind of interspersed through many of the rooms. And yeah, that is the scene that's kind of before you. I guess, I guess we'll just do a quick round in just in character keeper order, I think, of what people want to sort of do in specific, or if there's anyone specific that you want to kind of catch up with, or anything that you want to be on the lookout for. I'll go back in reverse order this time. So Professor, is there any of those initial people I've mentioned that you want to kind of speak to, or anything else that you want to kind of investigate while you're here, or otherwise get up to?
No, I don't know that there's anyone in particular that you would single out. Interest.
Yeah, no, as we can loop back around in a minute and see see what else you might be getting up to, or who approaches you. But that's cool. Yeah, and Ms. Balakwa, how about you?
I don't think that Priyanka has met, interacted with, or has any other kind of real relationship with Lord Fauconberg. So I think that they would probably seek out the artist behind the work and inadvertently end up having a discussion with the mastermind.
That sounds good. And Fujisawa.
I think Fujisawa may be sticking close to Miss Balakwa for now, if only to avoid James Whistler.
Fair. Lady Camilla.
I'm imagining a scene with Lord Fauconberg and Lady Camilla in front of a painting, one of his paintings of Francis the Fawn, that is in this exhibition. But we can't be all on Lucian at the same time. What else might I do? Maybe I might have an encounter with Mr. Whistler, since Fujisawa is ignoring him.
Cool. That sounds good. So yeah, we'll start off, I think, with I think actually it's even that as you're sort of initially looking around at the various exhibits, Priyanka, you will actually see Lord Fauconberg clearly spots you and starts walking towards you purposefully, kind of thing. Purposefully in a party kind of way, rather than sweeping people out aside. But it's he'll begin sort of clearly coming towards you as he says, Miss Balakwa, I presume. I'm afraid I consider it a great defect of mine. I've not yet had the opportunity to meet with you, but I am so very glad you could attend this evening. My name is Lucian Belisais. It's a pleasure to meet you. And he will go to take your hand and kiss it if you will allow him.
We will. I think that there's like we hold a fan in front of our faces. It's happening, and saying, you seem to have caught me unawares, Lord Fauconberg. I was not aware that you had even the slightest idea who I was or that I would be attending tonight. I find myself rather grateful to have the artist before me, so I may learn a bit more about the paintings you've created tonight.
Of course, I would be more than delighted to. I have met some of your, colleagues, I suppose, previously. I am aware of Hargrave House and your work, but you are even among the strange and varied types that wind up at Hargrave House. You are a truly unique find, I feel.
I'm afraid you have left me rather flummoxed, Lord Fauconberg. You seem to know quite a bit about London and about the inner workings of such things. I please don't find me ungracious of your kind words. I do hope that I can somehow live up to the expectations you seem to have set upon me.
I am sure that you will, Miss Balakwa. Perhaps it is just my natural inclination. I have always been drawn to see beyond the veil, and he will kind of eye your blindfold and say, and I feel that desire has not waned over the years, and he'll give you a smile.
Priyanka, possibly a little bit untoward, steps slightly closer to Lord Fauconberg and turns their shoulders so that they're facing the painting and says, I was wondering if you too were a pursuer of the truth. I see many of the hallmarks of the greater design within these paintings. I was hoping that perhaps I might seek some of your insight into the ways of finding hidden things and discovering hidden truths. perhaps we might be able to discuss this privately at some point this evening.
Of course. I'm sure we can find a little time away from the crowds. He'll smile. And I absolutely must paint you at some point. Nothing would give me greater pleasure. But yes, as you say, I have some experience in the world unseen, as it were. There's well, we'll talk more about it later, of course. And he will turn to Fujisawa as well, and give you kind of a nod of acknowledgement.
Fujisawa has been making faces throughout this entire conversation, although they've been hidden behind a fan of her own, as she's tried to pretend to give Ms. Balakwa some privacy. But I think she's rather chilly with Lord Fauconberg at this moment. She pretends that she does not see the nod and that she's so absorbed in the painting and its craftsmanship. But he can tell that she absolutely saw his gesture and that she's being quite impertinent.
Awesome. So we have kind of a mini unseen type thing going on in here as well. So we are going to kind of go through some of the exhibits on display at this. And not everything here is from Lord Fauconberg. This is kind of a mixture of different contributors, but definitely some of his pieces are here as well. Excuse me. So yeah, the first exhibit that we will see this evening in one of these rooms are lots of depictions of a mythical past, but through kind of obviously using modern techniques, whether that be photography or just more modern painting styles rather than actively kind of antique stuff. What do you see in the art that gives you either hope or fear for the future, and why? And again, this is a paint scene question, so that's what that one is for each of you to answer.
Sorry, could you repeat the prompt?
Yeah, certainly. So this in the first exhibit we will be paying attention to is a collection of pieces that are all depictions of a mythical past, but with kind of modern techniques used in their construction. And the question itself is, what do you see in the art that gives you either hope or fear for the future, and why?
There's a rather lurid triptych in one corner that's turned slightly away, so one must actually circle around it to see the paintings inside. And they are far ahead of their time. They're very Baconian in nature, and they depict a strange primordial London. There's a tower that reaches high above the plains, and it seems to be made of twisted flesh and bone. It is positively graphic by Victorian standards, and many men have turned their women away from it before they can catch a glimpse at this viewing. And when Priyanka gazes upon its horrific visions, it fills her with a dread that they have not known for a very long time.
Awesome.
I imagine that some of them are pre-Raphaelite in their treatment of the mythic themes. Maybe there's even a Rossetti, since he lives on Shane Walk, I believe, just a few doors down. He might even be in attendance. Oh my goodness! But I'm imagining that there's this, of course, idealized beauty in all the figures in the paintings that they tended to use in pre-Raphaelite painting, and this sense of almost rarefied goodness in some of the faces, in the beauty of the faces, that has a sense that uplifts the viewer and imagines that there's almost these Platonic ideals of goodness shining through these mythic figures and into the audience members or into the viewer.
I think that there's a very large painting, like so large that the figures depicted in it are almost like life-size, of a throne covered in vines and ivy, not unlike the one that Fujisawa saw in Madame Sorokin's scrying bowl. And in the painting in front of this throne, as though they're fighting over it and fighting for the power that it represents, are two nude men. There are like kind of grapes being squished underneath them. Their skin is sort of running with this like very viscous looking red grape juice that's like very lovingly rendered by the painter. And looking on it, Fujisawa feels the same sort of out-of-body experience that she had when she was dreaming about soaring over London, a sort of ominousness that she can't quite place the source of.
Awesome.
There's a large print of a photograph of the crescent moon, and added to the image is kind of a medieval city with, you know, castle spires and whatnot, like scraped into like the, what would you call it, the, you know, nestled in the crescent on top. And I think if you look closely, it takes on kind of a sinister feel because there's little, you know, eyeballs peering out, kind of scattered around the print.
Nice. That's lovely. Thank you. So yeah, and I think Lady Camilla, you'll find James Whistler stood chatting with a couple of people. He's sort of you know, looking at a couple of the paintings, has a glass of wine in his hand. He will nod to you as you approach. I don't think you've met him yet. In fact, I think it's only Fujisawa that's met him so far, isn't it?
And could someone, Elle, could you remind me what happened to the portrait that he painted of you? Did you take it, or?
So Priyanka definitely has one painting of Fujisawa by Whistler,
Oh, it's in your personal quarters. Okay, got it.
But that doesn't mean he didn't do another one.
He didn't say he wouldn't, right? Okay.
Yeah, no, that can. I think that can absolutely be a picture of Fujisawa here. If I think that could be a cool entree to the scene, as it were. Yeah, I think maybe he's at the standing at the foot of this painting of Fujisawa. And I think just to be like super on the nose, it's maybe done in that very like side-on profile style of the Whistler's Mother painting, as you kind of wander past.
Yeah, and I think there's a way that he's not been too on the nose with rendering her likeness. Or maybe she's turned away slightly. I don't know that painting of the Whistler's Lover, but it stops Lady Camilla in her track as she looks at it, and then she looks at she goes closer and she looks at the signature. I don't know if Whistler's signature was legible or not, but let's assume it is. Mr. Whistler.
And I think at that he'll turn and say, yes, ma'am, good evening. I don't believe I've had the pleasure. James Whistler, nice to meet you.
Pleased to meet you, Mr. Whistler. I am Lady Camilla Betancourt Davies. Is this your work?
It is. He'll point at that and a couple of other paintings here and say, not quite as avant-garde as some of the stuff here, but I get by. And he grins.
It is quite evocative, Mr. Whistler. It makes me think of someone I know. It's such an intimate view of this woman. I have to ask, is this someone you knew well?
I wouldn't say I knew her well, but I've certainly got to know her.
Something about the way you've rendered her face speaks of secrets untold, mysteries to be delved into. I wonder, Mr. Whistler, do you still long to discover the secrets hidden in this young woman's face?
That's a good question, Lady Camilla. I think secrets. I think some secrets are more interesting when you don't when they're kept secret, if you know what I mean. But yeah, I definitely got the feeling that there's an awful lot going on behind the mask there, as it were.
The untold and the unknown can inflame our desires, can't it? If everything is too tidy, it becomes dull.
You've yeah, I think I'd agree with that, Lady Camilla. You certainly have an eye for this, or maybe
Mr.
it's
Whistler.
just an eye for people, I suppose. That's a big part of what certainly being a portrait artist is all about.
I can see that you have quite a gift for it, my friend. And I wish you good luck in enjoying the mysteries of your model. Hopefully you'll have more opportunities to paint her.
I'll certainly drink to that, Lady Camilla, and he'll raise his glass to you.
Cheers then, Mr. Whistler. Have a good evening and enjoy the show. And Lady Camilla shoots a glance over towards Fujisawa, is Fujisawa watching us?
I think she is, and I think that when you look over, you catch her taking a swig out of the flask that she has brought into the exhibition. And she'll quickly look away when your eyes meet.
And Lady Camilla smiles mischievously and walks on.
Excellent, excellent. As you are kind of milling around through the show, you will spot the man you met in the pub the other day, the bunch of grapes, Reverend Bywater. So again, yeah, he's a find my description of him. We had him in that one scene. Yeah, he's a deceptively young man in gold frame glasses, the soft drawl. He probably again is still I don't think he is actually wearing his clerical garb this evening. I think he's left that behind for the night. He is standing chatting, and again they probably are actually under the paintings of the Dionysian excess that Fujisawa saw earlier, and he is talking with with a younger man who is very like waifish and beautiful, but with that kind of melancholic cast to his face. He's got dark curly hair, olive skin, and you will actually do that kind of double take thing where you realize that he is one of the models for that painting, yeah, the two of them are kind of chatting, but as the Reverend sees you, he'll say, Professor Cockburn, wasn't it? Please do how are you finding the evening? Come over, please. And he'll wave you over and say, isn't all this frightfully interesting? Have you had a chance to see much of the work on display here yet?
No, not really. I've just gotten here.
Yes, well, this is. I do so love this this piece here. They've truly captured the spirit of the of the ecstasies of Dionysus, and he will kind of nod to the young man next to him. This here is young Darius. He modelled for the painting. Don't you know? It's I can clearly see why someone would wish him to stand in as a model. And the young man Darius will say, "Good evening, sir. It is a pleasure to meet you, Darius Mazdaki. Yes, it's I have enjoyed modelling for some of these paintings, and I suppose it is I'm sorry, the word escapes me. It is an honour to be on display here, I suppose.
How did you come to know the artist?
Oh, Lucian had some business with my father, I believe. He is an ambassador here in London. We are from Iran. And well, finding myself at something of a loss for other entertainments here, I have sat for Lucian several times.
I'm wondering what language would they be speaking in Iran?
Yeah, it would be. I always get those ones confused.
Persian.
Yeah, it's yeah, exactly. It's Persian.
Yeah, I think Eloise knows it at least a little, enough to, say, well, welcome to London. Hope you enjoy your time here or something.
And yeah, he will kind of smile a little at that and say, "Thank you. It's always nice to meet people who I can speak with in my own tongue." Lucian has quite an aptitude as well, and the Reverend will kind of look between the two of you and say, "Awfully sorry, old chaps, but sadly, I'm an absolute." An absolute fool at any languages spoke by living people. Give me a good bit of old church Latin any day.
Eloise probably says in old church Latin, it's like, don't worry, I only speak it a little, and my pronunciation, I'm sure, was terrible.
He'll kind of grin.
I think old church Latin, Eloise is probably pretty fluent.
Yeah. And he'll kind of smile as then likewise Darius kind of looks a little lost and says, perhaps all being told, maybe we ought to just stick to English with a sort of smile. And I think with that, what we're going to do is we'll go to our next unseen. So I think just as a kind of heads up now as well, we're probably going to kind of do the next unseen, carry on for a little bit, and then stop there, and then kind of pick up with like essentially the second half of the of the night phase next time. Well, it might throw our schedule, well, not our scheduling, but our rhythm off a little bit, but we can deal with that when we get to it. It's not a problem. So that being said, it is the unseen, and it is Daryl, one for you. Polishing the marble floor in a room of Roman relics, Kamal takes a moment to look around. What items tell a story of the supposed decadence of Rome?
There is a frieze on one wall that is rather interesting and is actually rope cordoned off so that it's not very accessible to, like you can't get up close to really look in the details. And the tombstone next to it says that it is a depiction of the Roman Emperor Caligula at a competition, and the frieze itself actually depicts the moment where, because there were not enough poor and imprisoned peoples to fight in the tournament, that Caligula has actually ordered a whole stand of people who had come to watch the festivities to be thrown into the arena with the wild animals. And so the juxtaposition of the frieze is that there is the people of Caligula's court who are wining and dining, eating grapes and laughing lavishly, surrounding the arena where it's a throng of wild animals and the mutilated body parts of the audience all coming together in a fleshy mound that evokes true terror at the ways in which the Romans saw entertainment in even the most atrocious of things.
Awesome. And I think at this point, Fujisawa, you will be approached by it probably takes a moment to recognize them, but you will quickly realize that it is Periwinkle. He has is wearing almost like a bikini is probably the best way of putting it, but kind of with mirrors, on it, and his most of his exposed skin has been painted silver, and he says, Fujisawa, lovely to see a familiar face here.
Fujisawa almost chokes on the surreptitious swig of whiskey that she was in the midst of. Her eyebrows raise in surprise. Oh, Periwinkle. They let you out of the asylum, I see.
Well, it's more that they dragged me along to this one, I think. But yes, it's certainly something, isn't it?
So the other members of the society are here.
Yes, well, the Abernathys are, and probably a few of the others. They're all into. He'll kind of indicate a kind of towards a couple of the painting rooms, but this sort of thing.
Oh, pity. I was hoping for your sake that you had a night off.
Not exactly, no, but it's at least a change of scenery, I suppose.
Fujisawa will look around for a moment just to make sure that Lady Camilla nor any of the other hunters are looking her way, and she'll offer the flask to Periwinkle.
Yeah, he'll take it with and take a gulp out of it, cough a little, and hand it back and say, "Thank you." And you can see there are kind of a couple of like silver paint fingerprints left on the surface of the flask.
Yeah, I think she'll carefully wipe it off before she puts it away.
Sorry, this stuff gets everywhere.
Yes. Well, it looks very. She kind of cocks her head to the side. I won't lie to you, it looks strange.
Yes, I think it's supposed to be the spirit of silver plate photography. I think this concept got a little out of hand.
Fujisawa lets out this little burst of laughter, probably much louder than she hoped to or expected to. I imagine a few like hoity-toity types turn their heads at the sound. Well, I am not an artist myself, so I'll save my commentary. I'm trying to avoid someone here, and he's in this room. I wouldn't mind to continue this chat, but shall we elsewhere?
Of course. And he'll wander off towards kind of one of the other rooms. Most of them have kind of connecting doors from one end to the other, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think actually that sounds like as good a prompt as any for our next paint the scene. So what room do you get led into? So exhibit 2, paintings of strange vistas, either alien entirely or from unexpected perspectives. So this is, again, obviously it's paint the scene. So what do you see here that makes you want to leave London behind, and why can't you?
Could you repeat that first part of that prompt?
Yep,
David?
certainly. So in this room or in this exhibit, there are paintings of strange vistas, which are either sort of entirely alien landscapes or just, regular landscapes from unexpected perspectives. And the question here is, what do you see that makes you want to leave London behind, and why can't you?
I think maybe this is too early for Henri Rousseau, but I'm just thinking about kind of this kind of jungle, kind of very stylized jungle landscape with almost no people in it, maybe 1 or 2 people in it, and as Lady Camilla looks at this painting, I think she's remembering her trips to South America and the freedom she felt being away from all the trappings of civilization and all the expectations on her and all the constraints upon her. And but she also feels the weight of her responsibility to be here, to serve the crown, to do what needs to be done to keep London safe from supernatural horrors and such. And so there's a sense of regret and loss in her as she looks at the painting.
Awesome, awesome.
There's a painting of the London skyline, but it's upside down and made to look like storm clouds, with like the smoke of industry and whatnot. And underneath is a sea of clouds and stars with a ship that is sailing away to clear skies.
There's a painting of the front of Buckingham Palace, but the painting has been painted in such a way that it has an extreme fisheye effect, so that everything seems to just be tumbling toward the front gate of the palace. And it reminds one of how no matter how far one goes, no matter how distant one tries to get from the crown, that their influence seems to reach out and draw everyone back into it.
Awesome, thank you.
I think there's a painting that is very similar in composition to The Scream by Edvard Munch. It's not that painting, but it's a woman, I think, with the kind of hands on head, mouth open and sort of unsettling O. And the background looks like it could be London, but it's like distorted, as though the effect is almost as though the painting was like left out in the rain and the background was left to sort of run off the canvas. And I think Fujisawa feels a sort of envy when she looks at this painting. Even though it's meant to be unsettling, she thinks to herself that there would be a sort of freedom in, being able to scream in this way, to like let everything out. It might help to get out of London, but then she thinks that there's actually no place like that in the world where that would be possible for her. The place where she can be fully and freely herself doesn't exist. Not yet, anyway.
Awesome, thank you. So, I think at this point, as Lord Fauconberg kind of, gives you a short bow, Priyanka, he will kind of carry on mingling on at this point as well. He will kind of come by you, Professor, and he will kind of smile, do brief introductions, but then he'll kind of bow down and whisper something into Darius's ear, and kind of lead him off as they sort of start moving away to one of the other rooms. But yeah, I'm gonna go back and say, Priyanka, as you'll sort of notice, more you'll notice Fujisawa's absence as Lord Fauconberg makes his exit. Was there anything you wanted to do?
Sorry, can I get a quick rundown of who else is in the room again? I've forgotten the guest list.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No worries. So yeah, the other people that are kind of around. Are obviously there's the Reverend Nathaniel Bywater, who is currently still at this moment over by the professor. you know that the Abernethys are present. Well, I mean, you don't necessarily know that the Abernethys are present, but it is a fact that the Abernethys are present. You may or may not have seen them yet. There's obviously James Whistler, who's just been chatting with Lady Camilla. There's a pianist called Sophie Burns who's playing the piano. There's Darius, who's being in the process of being led off by Lord Fauconberg. The other figure of note that you might have, that is going to stand out from the crowd, that were, is there's a woman, sort of, like I said, dressed head to toe in black, in black lace. In fact,
you said she was veiled, right?
That's right. Yep.
Well, then, of course, being similarly matched all in white, I think that I will go talk to the lady in black.
Excellent. Yeah, you find you can meet her with her little difficulty, and as you approach her, she will kind of dip her head to you, and yeah, like I said, it's everything she's wearing is black lace essentially, so you can kind of just about make out her face behind the veil, but not much of it. She's not especially tall or short. She's a fairly average height. Doesn't appear to be. You don't think that she's ancient, but it's difficult to make out much at all about her just from a glance. But she will turn to you and say, "I wondered if you would make my acquaintance this evening. Good evening, Priyanka. My name is Alessandra Volpe. A pleasure to meet you."
Does that name ring any bells for me?
It probably does, actually, as she has some measure of fame. She is she certainly markets herself as a Strager. She is a seer of some type. She will say, we make quite the pair, don't we?
I think that Priyanka comes close and turns toward the painting that Alessandra was also viewing and says, I am all astonishment to find so many seekers of the truth here this evening. Of course, it has been a long time desire to acquaint myself with you. What was your last name? Volpe?
Volpe, yep.
Volpe, yeah. Is she a madam, a miss?
Yeah, probably a madam. Is the closest, but yeah.
Madam Volpe. I have long desired to make your acquaintance, Madam Volpe. I think that we are very likely kindred spirits in our search for the truth.
Indeed. I have not been in London long, but I am beginning to get the measure for it, I feel. How about yourself?
We seem similarly matched in many regards. I am only recently of London myself, though I seem to have settled in rather quickly. I do think that it is rather a different experience than what I am accustomed to. But then again, most things in London are.
Yes. Indeed. I certainly miss the Mediterranean climate for one, but I think the work I am doing here is valuable.
Madame Volpe, please forgive me for potentially being too forward, but it seems that we have been brought together tonight for some grander design. Do you think that there might be some possibility we could speak privately and perhaps acquaint ourselves with each other's talents?
I think that would be fair. She kind of, you can see kind of her head moving as she eyes you up and down. I think a test, maybe test is too formal a word, but I would certainly be intrigued to learn more of you, and I am always happy to teach people of my to teach people at least some of the secrets I know. After all, we must keep some secrets to ourselves, must we not?
Yes, it is important to keep certain things private, but Madame Volpe, I think that you would find me a most dedicated student if you were to determine that those secrets should find a new home.
Perhaps we shall see how this evening plays out, but I would certainly be, I'm certainly happy to speak more. And I think we'll cut from there to just go over to Lady Camilla briefly.
So I do imagine that Lady Camilla is standing. I do see her standing in front of a portrait of Francis the Faun, and taking it in. She has a glass of wine in her hand, and she's smiling as she takes it in, kind of reminiscing a little bit in her mind about Francis. And I don't know if Lucian shows up or not.
I think he's almost certainly. I think he could well be sort of walking past at that moment. I think probably
we'll save this scene for next time if you prefer.
Yeah, no, but I think he will kind of see you and turn and say, "Ah, Lady Camilla, so glad you could make it."
Lucian, a lovely, lovely exhibition. And this painting, my goodness, you really have captured the Faun's unique insouciance. Something about in his mouth, that sensuous lower lip that seems to always be in a pout. Resting pouty face, I like to call it. And the delicate glow of his pale skin, so lovely. Pity it bruises so easily. It leaves him unsuitable for certain divertissements. But really, Lucien, you must satisfy my curiosity. You must have sat with the boy for untold hours to complete these portraits. The Faun has many gifts, but scintillating conversation is simply not one of them. Whatever did you find to talk about?
I can usually find something, but I am also quite happy to work in silence when I must. And then he will kind of put a hand on Darius's shoulder and say, "Young Darius here, on the other hand, is quite the conversation partner, at least." And he'll kind of give him a somewhat patronizing smile, at least when he isn't sulking anyway.
And Lady Camilla steps forward boldly, and she just brings one index finger up under the chin of Darius and raises his face just a little so she can look at it better from her height.
And I think that, he kind of follows the movement, but definitely gives a scowl at that, and says, "I am not accustomed to being touched without permission, my lady." And it takes, and you can tell sort of clearly from his accent that he's kind of, well, both you can tell that he is obviously speaking as a second language, but also that he's clearly learnt from some very highly paid tutors, put it that way.
No offense meant, my dear. I was just trying to get a better look at your lovely face. It really is quite beautiful.
Thank you, my lady.
Oh, Lucien, you have the most perfect taste in young men. You seem to always be surrounded by the most pretty of them.
I rather like to think I have the most excellent taste in all things, my lady. But yes, I certainly have an eye for the beautiful.
Well, this exhibition is certainly a paean to your aesthetics. Thank you so much for the invitation. I hope it's everything you've hoped it would be.
Indeed, certainly so far. I was delighted to meet the Priyanka Belakwa. I'm looking forward to spending some more time with them.
Yes, I did see you conversing. It's always good for Hargrave House to make connections.
Quite so, my lady, quite so.
Well, I will leave you and Darius to your promenade, which I'm sure has not completed just yet. There are many people observing us even as we speak, looking for a moment of your attention, Lucien. You're the belle of the ball, it seems.
Well, I'm sure you're well acquainted with the duties of host, Lady Camilla. But I do hope we get the chance to speak again later. And he'll kind of give you a bow as he continues on his way.
She gives him a nod.
And Professor, I think Nathaniel will kind of say, had you had any further thoughts yet on whether you might come along to our little soiree one evening, Professor? I'm sure you would enjoy it greatly.
Yes, I'm sure I would. I don't know that I'll be able to make it, but perhaps another time.
Well, that is a shame, but the invitation stands. It's he'll glance around, a little more raucous an affair than this, I have to say, but not without its deeper moments as well. For a scholar of antiquities.
Well, I'll keep that in mind.
You do. Well, if you will excuse me, I am going to go and fetch myself another glass. This one seems to have become quite dry. He'll kind of raise it to you to demonstrate and make a move. And yeah, that is where we will leave things for this evening. As I say, we'll come back next time and kind of pick up with the second half of this night phase and then see what happens from there. But yeah, thank you very much, everyone. It's been a lot of fun. If you have any kind of echoes in the night or anything like that you want to just make a note of for next time, feel free to do so. Yeah, I'll stop the recording now.